The implicit association test, also called the IAT for short, is not your standard kind of psychological test where you're asked to express your attitudes, who you like, don't like, etc. Rather, it asks you to classify either pictures, for instance, pictures of black and white people as black or white, or words meaning pleasant and unpleasant things as pleasant or unpleasant, and it makes inferences from your speed of categorizing these things correctly under a few different conditions to make inferences about associations that exist in your head. These associations are what we call implicit biases. The IAT provides a measure of implicit biases, and one of its main value is to allow people to discover their implicit biases. The test, by acquainting people with their implicit biases, allows people to discover that they have a problem that may be affecting their decisions in ways that they don't want. So they want to prevent that. And one way, the best way to prevent operation of implicit biases is to prevent the possibility of them. So if you're making decisions about people who are of various groups, men, women, black, white, race, young, old, if you know the demographics of the person before you make those decisions, you are likely to activate your implicit biases and have these biases operating. So the best way to do this, to prevent this, is to try to make as many decisions as you can solely on the basis of quality of performance of the person or merit, rather than any other, and not have access to knowledge of who they are. This can exclude the operation of implicit biases in ways that cannot be prevented very easily by other means. If only it were possible. However, the research that's been done over the last 20, 25 years has shown that there is really no method either of our modifying our biases by ourselves or being exposed to training procedures that will modify our biases. So the best we can do, as I think I already suggested, is to avoid knowledge of the demographics that might elicit those biases when we are making decisions. For example, when I'm grading students, I don't do it anymore, I'm retired, but when I used to do it, I would find ways of grading their answers without knowing who the students were, and so I could not be influenced by my knowledge of their demographics. It can be used by courts, by prosecutors, by judges and juries, if they are aware of implicit biases and do things to try to prevent the operation of implicit biases. But not many people know enough about implicit biases and don't have a way of modifying their operation. So the best they can do is to try to prevent the operation of the biases and to be alert to their possible effect on juries, on courts, on judges, on prosecutors. And as an expert witness in discrimination cases, I get in the position of offering evidence on how implicit bias operates so that judges may be able to make decisions in favor of plaintiffs who are being discriminated against and proceed. Also, some states are making that possible. California, for example, has a Racial Justice Act, which is encouraging courts to discover evidence of juror bias and judicial bias and rehear cases, or defendants can petition for retrials. But As an expert testifying in those cases, I do what I can to educate courts and juries about bias so that they can try to avoid its operation.